My name is Karen Daniels and I'm going to talk about the ongoing movement of the people yet to come. To begin this presentation, I invite you to imagine standing in an area of a large open-plan early years classroom occupied by 30 busy 4- and 5-year-old children. You can imagine the hive of activity and the children clustered around the sand tray, the workshop area with its reclaimed materials, sellotape, glue, scissors and bits of tissue paper. Then there's the water tray, the role play area, painting easels, sand tray, and the writing table with alphabet charts, pens and pencils, and even more bits of paper, washable flooring and carpeted areas, tables, cupboards, PCs, workbenches, walls. All these things come to mind when we think of the early years classroom. This is without doubt a snapshot of a pre-COVID classroom. Listening and watching closely, you start to gain impressions. The water tray is an ocean. A shark is relentlessly pursuing a clownfish, hovering over the washable flooring flight path. A superhero with laser eyes scans the classroom. Meanwhile, a child is peeling glue off her thumb. A scattering of assembled blocks have become a home for plastic farm animals, being put to bed before being read to, and so it goes on and on. A rapid proliferation of ever-shifting meanings continually produced where young children meet the earliest classroom. Like not being able to see the wood for the trees, so prevalent is the ongoing movement of children's bodies that it's easy to overlook. What is the significance of the moving, feeling body, and what part does it play in the rapid production of symbolic meaning from which literacy practices emerge? Understandings of young children's diverse communicative practices and literacy repertoires can often be overlooked when there's uncritical acceptance of linear trajectories based on predetermined and incremental literacy skills. Notions that exacerbate existing inequalities forged by power relations inherent in all communicative practices and shored up. And question and acceptance that only one form of literacy exists overwrites the role played by the moving, feeling body as meaning comes into being. Stories of lost learning are prevalent, and these have arisen from concerns of children not being in school as we come out of yet another lockdown. As a tutor of training teachers and a friend and colleague of many teachers, I've heard lots of different stories. Teaching a small number of children and having the time to read with them every day has meant they're doing well with their reading. Sending packs of reading and learning materials home has strengthened relationships with parents, and not to mention them taking part in online taught lessons. Online transition to school was a hit as a new teacher read stories to children and their families. Many things had changed, some seen as positives and others less so. Undoubtedly the digital divide became more apparent, as children dropped in and out of online lessons, or didn't appear at all. Children's lost engagement with the official literacy practices of school was projected in full force. Returning to the vignette of the earliest classroom, it's hard to imagine any kind of workable provision for young children that does not involve handling materials and objects and moving freely. I think back to the busy and vibrant early years classroom and the moving, feeling body and how meaning comes into being, and wonder, if something is lost, what exactly is it? This question arises for me as my most recent research has focused on the moving affective body and its role in the emergence of young children's early literacy practices. In order to account for ongoing bodily movements, I think with assemblage, thereby acknowledging the human activity is that which takes place within a network assemblage of time, place, people, material objects that act on semiotic material and social flows simultaneously. I render visible a constitutive thread of the assemblage, that of children's ongoing bodily movements. Bodily movements are on multiple scales, from whole bodily walking movements such as those explored by Hackett in a museum context, to smaller movements such as those made by the hands or face. Bodies moving create affective atmospheres that influence meanings made in unpredictable ways. According to Masumi, affect is a non-conscious, visceral bodily experience related to the sensations of the body as the body continually passes through experiential states of being, as it moves, feels and interacts with the material environment. My observations of children's large and small bodily movements suggest that continual patterned and dynamic flows of bodily movement hold a communicative and affective quality that creates affective atmospheres. These affective atmospheres flow alongside the production of meaning and meaningful places. Affecting atmospheres produced by bodily movements are infectious, transmitted across children and groups of children, and often emerge as shared practices as children follow their interests. The quality and dynamics of children's bodily movements affect and are affected by the material configuration of the assemblage, the speed, purposefulness, directness, or the meandering stop-start of bodily movements generates a symbolic salience that plays a part that influences the practices that emerge. Children come to school with a diverse range of communicative practices, guided by their home and community experiences. They come together in an early years classroom and learn how to be and how to get along. They create places that make sense to them, where they can find ways of being and doing things together, forge friendships and participate. Movement signals interest across and between children and involves much negotiation, communication and building of shared understanding, realised through bodily movements. It seems to me that this is what might be lost, where children cannot move and explore the meaning-making potential and find ways of being and doing together in the ongoing present of the early years classroom. Linear trajectories of literacy development provide a guide, but they can also act as a constraint on progress, or more so, how we view children's journeys as we link these to specific points in time. As an alternative, Deleuze and Guattara suggest the notion of becoming. For Deleuze and Guattara, our potentiality is not set in some distant future. We are always already the people yet to come, a concept that expresses the perpetual potentiality of becoming other inherent in the present. When we see the potential of what's imminent in the here and now, rather than locating potentiality in far futures, notions of lost learning don't make quite so much sense. Becoming is not about serial progression or regression towards an anticipated state of being or future condition. Instead, it's more about recognising the continual flow of changes in the ongoing present, the present moment being the productive moment of becoming. Sellers 2015. Seeing children as being together in the ongoing present, we are better placed to see learning not in terms of predetermined developmental stages, but as a process of becoming where possibilities for being and participating are collectively, materially and spatio-temporally contingent. I think back to the busy, vibrant early years classroom once again, and the moving, feeling body, and how meaning comes into being, and wonder what it is that's really lost, why our children cannot come together. And what do we mean by lost? Is it a few steps along an imaginary trajectory of literacy skills, or is it something else? Thinking with the concept of becoming, and as children as already the people yet to come, shifts how we might think about lost learning. Looking more expansively at literacy and what it can be, recognises the diverse ways in which literacy comes into being, and it means we are better placed to rethink afresh the possibilities of the ongoing present. And here are some references. Thank you for listening.